a series of kind of events that took place that basically increased temperatures around the seas, around the oceans, basically caused the dieback of 10,000 fish. Now, this was a huge problem. Thousands of people flocked to the beaches, and they were stumbled across this insane sight where the whole ocean floor was just filled and filled and filled with thousands and thousands of fish dying. And this was a big problem. Obviously, it was a big smell. The authorities basically stepped in. They stopped people from picking up the fish. Obviously, they're poisonous because they've been sitting out in the sun. As it turns out, the water is too hot, and this hotness has basically caused massive oxygen drops inside of the water, which brought about the demise of fish. And the fish were basically trying to escape these zones of low oxygen, and this is what caused the event. Now, although they say it is a semi-natural event, it has never been recorded on this volume before. They've never seen the number of fish species like this before. Very similar event happened just later this week, but this time in Tanzania. And I think what you're actually starting to see is the impact of greater temperatures on the surface of various lakes, closed bodies, and obviously the ocean, and it's starting to play its role. Fourth story, I brought this up. This was in relation to a release that we did. We were talking about microplastics, but at the same time, we also had a discussion about renewable energy. And I went on and on about how China was playing a big role towards, they had an ambition, the termite mind, that basically once it focuses on getting rid of climate change or getting rid of their emissions, that everything kind of just focuses on that and they start acting upon it. Of interest, China, just almost 2 days after I issued that report, issued their statement basically saying that they intend to have 1/5, 20% of their entire energy requirements completely off-grid by 2030. Now, this is a big undertaking. They intend to do it by wind. At the moment, just to show you the kind of extent that they're doing, at the moment, China is powered 147 megawatts of their supply from wind. Combined, that is larger and more power than what they're doing in the entire area of Europe, the entire area of the United States in terms of wind power. China has also gone ahead and said that this is just the beginning. They're going to try and do more, but adding photovoltaics in their case. And it just goes to show you that when you have a concerted mind driven on the point, getting rid of these harmful emissions caused by coal-fired power stations, nuclear power stations, that you can actually do it, that it is achievable. And not only is it achievable, it's achievable by large economies. We also have to weigh this up with the fact, though, that China basically produces roughly 70% of the world's global emissions in terms of carbon and CO2 emissions and methane, and they cause a lot of damage, but it's a really good step on their behalf, something that they've taken forward, and something that we're really impressed about here on the Mother Channel. Our final story is in relation to an event that came out in the United States, and I find this quite ironic because we did cover microplastics and other chemical pollutants that were entering the waterways. Well, in the United States, a new study that's been done has found that there's a kind of toxin, or rather a chemical called PFAS. You can go Google it. As I said, I'll add the link below us. And what it is industrial chemicals that are used in the washing process, also in the manufacture of various bags, manufacturing of different kind of industrial components, often used as a fire kind of retardant in terms of airports and military bases, etc. And they found that roughly 6 million American people are affected by this phenomenon of increased toxins inside of the water, increased chemicals inside the water, and it's having a long-term negative effect. It can cause obesity, cause cancer, and obviously have various other genetic effects that can impact upon the populace. And this is just goes hand in hand with that kind of story that we did about microplastics, where we're talking about how we don't really take care of our groundwater, how we don't take care of our waterways, and how the runoff of chemicals is starting to have an impact on people. And here You have a prime example, a study done by MIT, in relation to the amount of kind of toxins and chemicals inside the water is now not only detectable, but they believe that the effects may be wider spread, meaning that it's, in this case, it goes across 33 states, but they believe it may be wider spread than that. They believe it may be impacting more people, and that the events or the effects of it are yet to be seen, but it is unacceptably high, and there's very, very little that they can actually do about it. This is water that is done, goes back into the kind of estuaries, goes back into the underground aquifers, and is drawn up for use by the municipalities or the councils in order to provide drinking water. And there's nothing you can do in terms of neutralizing the chemicals in it, and thus it brings about a massive problem in terms of drinking supply. Now, you'll probably find, in my opinion, that since it's having a direct impact upon people, that you might find that the municipalities or the councils or the government, they act a lot faster. But I bear with me a little on this, just find it a little funny that they act upon it when it has a direct impact, that they are able to notice, able to see, they're able to kind of respond to it, but nobody is talking about the other kind of areas that are surrounding it that are obviously awash with chemicals, generally flooding out into the oceans, into large lake bodies, and nobody's really accounting for that, mainly because it's not part of the drinking supply. But obviously, it's having an impact on the biology or the biomechanisms of all those ocean species or fish species or algae species or really beneficial kind of requirements of a generally healthy ecosystem. So I think that this is a story that you're starting to see like a little front tip of, and I expect that this is going to go a hell of a lot further very, very soon. Now, we're wrapping this up because we're going to go out and watch that movie. I hope you've enjoyed my update. It's been a little bit chaotic because we're kind of in a public place and a whole lot of people walking up and down, so I expect a few jump cuts here and there. As usual, if you've got any good stories that are happening in an area around you, take a clip, send it in, we'll screen it up. And I would like to thank you for joining me on this beautiful day, well, overcast day for us, but a beautiful day, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. How the pollutants now, if you imagine surrounding a dam or any kind of enclosed water system, the level of pollutants, runoff that comes from farming. So now, because they don't cover their topsoil, water is unable to accumulate, it's unable to get to the water aquifer, the sub aquifer. And it's also not retained in the topsoil for other organisms to use. So what happens is there's a lot of runoff caused going into various different dams. Now you have a farmer, and what the farmer does is he's got an issue with some bug or some other whatever bug, and he goes and sprays his crops with pesticides. You see them, they're dusting, and that runoff of the poisons or the pesticides goes into the water system. From the water system, all rivers flow to the sea, and what's happening is you're having a huge, almost like a source of poison, where before you would have these seawater nurseries, or what they call estuaries, these large mouths in which there was a mixture between seawater and fresh water, and it would be like a nursery for many different kinds of fish. And now all it is becoming is it's poisoning different kinds of fish. You've got fish larvae that has been impacted by microplastics. You've got huge amounts of pesticides pouring out into the oceans, and all of this is starting to have an overall effect of which we're seeing. And a good example of our overall effect is, I don't remember about last month, we reported on India having a 51-degree temperature. Well, India this month again broke its new record. So it's actually climbed above itself. So it was 52.6 degrees. So the impacts of what we're doing, even though it's not happening here in this beautiful place, or you may be sitting wherever you are watching this, it is happening. They lost, the Indonesian chain lost 5 islands. They're completely submerged. They're underwater. The impacts of what we are doing is starting to be easily discoverable. It's no longer, groundbreaking scientific research that comes out. Now, I'll tell you, this is a little bit complicated what I'm going to say now about this report that was based on, anti-global warming kind of skeptics, or global warming skeptics rather. They always claimed that one of their big kind of bullets that they always used to fire was so boring, listening to them go on and on, like trying to dredge up science that has been long, kind of solved. But anyway, one of their things was they were saying, look, if you look at the Arctic, and you see like the Arctic looks, is got a certain kind of pattern and a lot of collection of pollution, a lot of collection of carbon dioxide, and there is water runoff obviously that's happening in the Arctic, and it's viable and visible, and we can report on this. Oh my lord.
No, don't worry, Dad.
Okay, all right, sorry, I'm just watching the wildlife behind us just like freaking out, but we're fine. The wildlife is freaking out, but we're okay. So I'm really okay. But then they always so then they always pointed to Antarctica. And they said, but look there, in Antarctica, you're not seeing any of this. It goes to show you that carbon dioxide how can carbon dioxide only be having an effect in the Arctic? It's not happening in the Antarctica, and therefore it cannot be carbon dioxide or global warming based on carbon dioxide. It cannot be like this. And so, again, inside of this week, another report was issued as to why Antarctica is not showing any signs of kind of melt. Well, the same degree of melt, there is still obviously melt. And what was proven was that the water temperature at the top is increasing, but because Antarctica has deeper kind of chasms all around us, much deeper water, they've got ancient freezing water that's been sitting without contact with sunlight for hundreds of thousands of years, and that water is being lifted to the surface. So as the top water heats up, it lowers the pressure, the groundwater starts to rise up to the surface, makes like a bit of a convection, but with that it brings a whole new cooling into that area. It's actually keeping the bottom of Antarctica cool, it's keeping the seas around Antarctica cool. Now obviously there is a life span to how long it can do this, because even it's not an endless supply of ancient water, but there is a convectional layer that's happening, that's a thermal layer if you want, that's allowing the cooling impact of that water to be raised to the surface, and therefore is protecting Antarctica. Now the joke of this whole thing is that if you think about it, there was always going to be a logical reason. People that are around you that are, global warming skeptics or climate change skeptics, whatever you want to call them, they will always try and latch on to something else, like something else, And every time they've latched on to something, we had the heat island effect, we had solar radiation effect, we had they're always trying to latch on to something, because if you accept that the climate change is a really real event, take a look at just where we are. We're in the middle of winter, and it's kind of like a heat wave here. The UK is having floods and cold temperatures, and Europe as well. And it's record lows that are happening in Europe. And yet here we are, and we're still debating the science. Anybody that is coming up with a concept that that says anything that climate change is bullshit, because you've just got to stop listening. You've got to actually just tune your brain out, because they actually have no idea what they're talking about. And for every argument they keep bringing against it, in a matter of months that argument is torn to pieces, scientifically torn to pieces, and refuted. So it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy. And the events on the ground are starting to become easily observable, and we've really got to start to change our story. We've really got to start, and that's what I was trying to get back to. Like here we sit as just normal people, doing normal things on a normal daily basis, and we've got to understand that we are the last people that can bring about some change. There is one big revolution left for every person watching this. Every single person. There is one big revolution, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We have to start to change the way the world is working. And the only way we are going to do this is when we start to talk about it, when we bring it up to mainstream media, when we apply pressure on politicians to start to change the way your countries are being run. And until politicians are started to be vetted, not on, hey, I'll give you all great jobs and we'll stop buying from China, and until they are vetted on their green credentials, their credentials to build a sustainable future for your country, for your kids, for your grandchildren, until that happens, nothing is going to change. The power that be will continue to vest ourselves in oil, gas, fracking, any source of easy power, any source of easy money. And that's what they're going to keep doing. But the revolution is real. It's happening now. You need to join in. You need to join us on ENN. Why am I the only guy talking on ENN? Why hasn't some guy in the United States or some guy in UK or some guy in Australia or some guy in China, wherever, sent in a clip exactly like my clip explaining what's going on in China? Let's find out what's going on in China, what's going on in the United States. Start reporting on events that are happening around you. Let's bring those events, let's make it part of the mainstream media, and together we can actually start to change the world. That's about all that I've got for you today. Remember, we are looking for people to submit stories. I've just covered that. The baboons are starting to worry me a little, so I think I'm probably going to split really fast any moment now. So without further ado, I hope you guys have a great week. I'll chat to you probably in the middle of this week again, and maybe again at the end of the weekend. So have a great week, have a great day, and I'll see you later. Hello and good morning everyone. My name is Jason Saul. I'm reporting live for the Environmental News Network, coming to you from the Mother Channel. We are filming today in the Constantia, the Hohe Constantia Valley. As you can see behind me, it's that backdrop that is absolutely beautiful, and last time we were here was filled with baboons. So our producers seem to think that since I was not attacked last time, that it is a fairly safe location. And they also just happened to mention that should I be attacked, it would make for some great footage. Apparently that goes down very well and gets a lot of hits if you see people getting attacked by baboons. So I'm going to cover a couple of stories today, and then I'm going to revert back to a little kind of line that I think we need to start talking about. The first stories are related, in fact they're closely related, and it's something that all of you can actually pick up on. There was a study that was recently done in the Arctic relating to the volume of methane that is still trapped within the Arctic. Now they estimate that roughly 1,000 gigatons of methane is trapped under the permafrost within the Arctic. The good news about this is, for the moment, it appears that it is remaining stable. In other words, there's not a lot of leaking of either methane or carbon dioxide, because certain processes take place that will either strip the water down and put it into the riverways, into the runways, and it will actually convert it to a carbon dioxide as opposed to a